The massive doors of the Galactic Council chambers opened with a deep rumble that echoed through the vast hall. Ambassador Zexthil of the Krelian Empire walked slowly to the center podium, his 4 arms carrying data tablets that would change the course of galactic history. The representatives of 47 different species watched him with anticipation. Some floated in specialized atmospheric bubbles, while others stood on legs that ranged from 2 to 8 in number. The air itself was a carefully balanced mixture that could support most known life forms. Though it smelled strange to human senses. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the human observation gallery, watching the proceedings through the thick transparent barrier that separated observers from the main floor. He had commanded the UES Liberty for 8 years and had seen many council sessions, but something felt different today. The whispered conversations among alien delegates had an edge to them that made him uncomfortable. His communication officer, Lisa Hayes, sat beside him, monitoring multiple channels on her portable device. "Something big is coming," Lisa whispered to Jake. "The chatter on the diplomatic frequencies has been crazy all morning." Ambassador Zexthil raised his primary arm for silence. His species looked like tall, thin humans covered in silver scales, but their eyes held an intelligence that seemed ancient and cold. When he spoke, his voice carried through the translation devices worn by every being in the chamber. "Honored representatives of the Galactic Council, we gather today to address a growing concern that threatens the peace and stability of our civilization," Zexthil began. "The species known as humanity has become increasingly unpredictable in their actions and innovations. Their rapid technological advancement and aggressive expansion policies have created instability in 17 different sectors." Jake felt his stomach drop. This was about Earth. This was about his people. The Zentari representative, a being that looked like a walking crystal formation, stood up. "We have documented 43 instances of humans ignoring established trading protocols. They create new technologies without proper testing periods required by Council regulations. Their military vessels use weapon systems that have not been approved by the Galactic Weapons Committee." A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Vorthan delegate, whose species resembled giant insects with gossamer wings, clicked his mandibles before speaking. "Humans refuse to follow population control guidelines. They establish colonies on worlds without waiting for environmental impact studies. They are chaos incarnate." Jake looked around the observation gallery. There were only 12 humans present, mostly ship captains and trade representatives. They were vastly outnumbered. The reality of their situation began to sink in. Lisa's device began beeping frantically. "Jake, I'm picking up emergency broadcasts from Earth. President Brooks is calling an emergency session of the Human Colonial Council." On the main floor, Zexthil continued his presentation. "The Krelian Empire has suffered economic losses due to human competition in the Outer Rim markets. Their terraforming techniques work faster than ours, but they ignore the spiritual significance that many species place on planetary transformation. They treat worlds like resources to be consumed rather than sacred spaces to be honored." The Aquarian delegate, speaking through a water-filled communication device, added her voice to the complaints. "Humans show no respect for the traditional ways of conducting diplomacy. They want immediate answers to complex questions. They refuse to participate in the ceremonial aspects of interspecies relations that have maintained peace for thousands of years." Jake watched as species after species stood to voice their concerns about humanity. The humans were too fast, too innovative, too willing to break with tradition. They asked too many questions and accepted too few answers. They explored too quickly and settled too aggressively. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to inspire other young species to question the established order. Dr. Alan Pierce, Earth xenobiologist and cultural advisor, sat 2 seats away from Jake. His face had gone pale as he listened to the charges being leveled against humanity. "They're not talking about trade disputes or territorial boundaries," he whispered. "They're talking about fundamental incompatibility." HFY activated a holographic display that showed human expansion over the past 50 years. Red dots representing human colonies spread across the galaxy map like a virus. In 5 decades, humans have established more colonies than most species create in 5 centuries. They adapt to environments that should be impossible for their biology. They refuse to accept that some worlds are too dangerous or too sacred for settlement. The display changed to show human technological development. Graphs and charts demonstrated how quickly human science had advanced since first contact with the galactic community. They have gone from primitive chemical rockets to faster-than-light travel in less than 100 years. Most species require millennia to achieve such advancement. This rate of change is destabilizing to galactic civilization. A vote was called. Jake watched in horror as representative after representative registered their agreement. The Zeridians voted yes. The Plutheri voted yes. Even the Centaurans, who had been friendly with humans for decades, voted in favor of the motion. Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. "What motion? What are they voting on?" Dr. Pierce had his translation device set to record everything. His face was grim as he provided the answer. Complete communication blackout with Earth and all human colonies. They're cutting us off from the galactic community entirely. The final tally appeared on the main display. 47 votes in favor, 0 against. It was unanimous. Every single species in the Galactic Council had voted to isolate humanity completely. Zexthel's voice carried a note of finality as he read the official decree. Effective immediately, all communication channels with human worlds are to be terminated. All trade agreements are void. All diplomatic relationships are severed. All educational and cultural exchanges are permanently suspended. Humanity will be left to develop in isolation until such time as they prove they can exist peacefully within galactic civilization. Jake felt the blood drain from his face. This wasn't just a diplomatic setback. This was exile. Complete and total. Exile from the galactic community that humanity had worked so hard to join. The session ended with the traditional closing ceremony, but Jake barely noticed. He was already activating his ship's communication systems, trying to send a warning to Earth before the blackout took effect. But even as he typed his message, he could see alien ships moving into position around the human observation area. "Jake," Lisa said quietly, "I'm getting reports from all the human ships in the system. We're being escorted out. All of us, right now." As the U.E.'s Liberty was guided away from the council chambers by alien security vessels, Jake managed to send one final message to Earth. "They've cut us off completely. We're on our own now. May God help us all." The response came back within minutes, just before the communication blackout took effect. It was from President Catherine Brooks herself. "Understood, Captain. Come home. We have work to do." Then there was silence. Complete and absolute silence from the galaxy that had once welcomed them with open arms. 5 years had passed since the galaxy went silent. The initial shock and anger had given way to something far more dangerous: human determination. In laboratories across Earth and its colonies, scientists worked with a fury that surprised even themselves. Without alien technology to rely on, they were forced to think in ways they never had before. Dr. Rachel Stone stood in her laboratory on Luna Station, staring at the prototype that would change everything. The quantum fold drive hummed quietly on the test bench, its crystalline core glowing with an inner light that no alien species had ever achieved. She had been working on this project for 3 years, ever since the communication blackout began. The theory was simple enough, but making it work had required her to throw out everything she thought she knew about faster-than-light travel. Computer, begin test sequence 742. Rachel said to the AI that controlled the laboratory systems. The drive began to spin faster, and reality seemed to bend around it. Space folded in on itself, creating a tunnel through dimensions that alien physicists had declared impossible. The test probe disappeared from the chamber and reappeared exactly where Rachel had calculated it would. The journey that should have taken 3 weeks using alien drive technology had been completed in 4 hours. She smiled and made notes on her tablet. Tomorrow she would test it with a full-sized spacecraft. Meanwhile, on the agricultural world of New Denver, Carl Jensen was revolutionizing terraforming in ways that would have amazed the galactic community. The former farmer had always been curious about how things grew, but isolation had forced him to become something more than he ever imagined. His breakthrough had come from studying the tiny organisms that lived in Earth's most extreme environments. Carl walked through the test valley that had been a lifeless desert just 6 months ago. Now it bloomed with Earth vegetation that had been modified to thrive in alien soil. The secret was in the bacteria he had discovered in the deepest ocean trenches on Earth. These microscopic life forms could break down any mineral and convert it into nutrients that Earth plants could use. The atmospheric processors are working perfectly, his assistant Maria Santos reported. She was Dr. Maria Santos now, having earned her doctorate in xenobiology during the isolation years. Oxygen levels are up 12% from last month, and the soil samples show complete mineral integration. Carl nodded and picked up a handful of rich, dark earth. The aliens never understood that life wants to grow everywhere. They thought terraforming had to be slow and careful. They never realized that Earth life is tougher than anything else in the galaxy. The transformation was visible from orbit. What had once been a brown, dead world was now showing patches of green that grew larger every day. Carl's techniques could terraform entire planets in months rather than the centuries that alien methods required dot in the orbital shipyards above Earth. Admiral Susan Carter watched as the latest human vessel took shape. The U's Defiance was unlike anything that had ever been built before. Without access to alien materials, human engineers had been forced to develop their own solutions. The result was revolutionary. The ship's hull was made from metamaterials that could change their properties based on need. In battle, they became harder than any known armor. During peaceful operations, they could become transparent or even permeable to allow for easier maintenance. The manufacturing process had been discovered by accident when a materials scientist named Dr. Benjamin Clark had been trying to solve an entirely different problem. Admiral, the test results from the new hull plating are incredible, reported Commander Steve Palmer, Carter's chief engineering officer. It's 30% lighter than alien hull materials, but can withstand twice as much damage. The self-repair capabilities are beyond anything we've seen. Carter smiled as she watched construction workers guide massive hull sections into place. Each piece was grown rather than built, using techniques borrowed from biological systems. The ships looked organic, almost alive, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like water. Dr. Clark himself was working on an even more revolutionary project in the medical research station orbiting Mars. He had been studying alien physiology data that Earth had collected during the years of contact, trying to understand why so many galactic species seemed to be dying out slowly. The answer had been hidden in their genetic codes. Most alien species had reached an evolutionary dead end. Their DNA repair mechanisms had become weak over millions of years of technological comfort. They lived longer than humans, but their species were slowly degrading with each generation. The solution is elegant in its simplicity, Dr. Clark explained to his research team. Human DNA has aggressive repair mechanisms because we evolved in a harsh environment. We can synthesize these repair enzymes and adapt them for alien biology. His assistant, Dr. Helen Rodriguez, looked up from her microscope. The test results on Zentari tissue samples are remarkable. We've restored genetic integrity to levels not seen in their species for thousands of years. But perhaps the most important discovery was being made at the edge of human space. Captain Lynn Fisher commanded the deep space exploration vessel UES Pioneer, and her mission was to map the galaxy beyond the areas that aliens had explored. What she found changed everything. "Captain, you need to see this," called Lieutenant Dan Murphy from the sensor station. "I'm detecting massive gravitational anomalies at the galaxy's edge. Something big is moving out there." Lynn moved to the sensor display and felt her blood run cold. The readings showed objects the size of moons moving through space in organized formations. They were heading toward the galactic core, where all the alien civilizations clustered together. "How long have they been moving?" Lynn asked. "Based on the gravitational wake patterns, I'd say they've been in motion for about 2 years," Dan replied. "They're still months away from the nearest alien worlds, but Captain, these things are huge. And there are hundreds of them." Lynn activated the ship's long-range communication array and sent an encrypted message. Back to Earth. The aliens had cut off all communication with humanity, but they had no idea what was coming toward them from the dark spaces between galaxies. On Earth, President Catherine Brooks received the report in her private office. She read it twice, then called an emergency meeting of her military advisors. General Robert Kane arrived within the hour, followed by Admiral Carter via secure video. Link from the orbital shipyards. "We have a problem," Brooks began, sliding copies of the report across the conference table. "Our deep space scouts have detected what appears to be an invasion force heading toward alien space." General Kane studied the data carefully. "These objects are massive. If they're hostile, the aliens don't stand a chance with their current technology." Admiral Carter's voice came through the speakers with static interference. "The question is, do we try to warn them? They cut us off completely. Their own systems will automatically reject any messages from human sources." President Brooks stood and walked to the window that looked out over the rebuilt Washington, D.C. The city had grown and changed during the isolation years, becoming something uniquely human rather than a copy of alien architectural styles. "We'll keep monitoring the situation," she decided. "If these objects prove hostile, we may be the only ones positioned to do something about it. Continue all research projects at maximum priority. I have a feeling we're going to need every advantage we can get." The irony was not lost on any of them. The galaxy had isolated humanity to contain their unpredictable nature, but that same unpredictable nature might be the only thing that could save them all. The first alien world died on a Tuesday. Captain Lynn Fisher watched from the bridge of the UES Pioneer as the Zentari colony of Kepler 442b simply went dark. One moment the planet's cities glowed with the familiar blue light of Zentari technology, and the next there was nothing but empty space where a thriving world had been. "Captain, I'm not reading any debris," reported Lieutenant Dan Murphy from his sensor station. "The planet is still there, but there's no electromagnetic signature at all. No power grids, no communication arrays, nothing." Lynn felt a chill run down her spine. She had been tracking the massive objects from the galaxy's edge for months, watching them move steadily toward the alien core worlds. The objects had reached the outer ring territories 3 weeks ago, and now entire civilizations were vanishing without a trace. "Launch a stealth probe," Lynn ordered. "I want to know what happened down there." The probe took 6 hours to reach the dead world and another hour to transmit its findings back to the Pioneer. When the data arrived, Lynn wished she had never sent it. The surface of Kepler 442b was covered in a black organic substance that pulsed with its own rhythmic pattern. The cities were gone, absorbed into this alien growth. Most disturbing of all, the probe detected no life signs whatsoever. Dr. Maria Santos worked frantically in her laboratory on New Denver, analyzing the probe data that had been transmitted to all human research facilities. The organic material covering the dead Zentari world was unlike anything in Earth's biological databases. It seemed to consume technology and organic matter equally, breaking everything down into its basic components. "It's not just destroying the civilizations," Maria explained to her research team during their emergency meeting. "It's digesting them. The black substance appears to be converting all matter into energy, which is then transmitted somewhere else." Her assistant, Dr. Carl Jensen, looked up from his own analysis. "The energy transmissions are directed toward the massive objects our deep space scouts detected. These things aren't just invading, they're feeding." The revelation was even more terrifying than they had imagined. A galaxy was being harvested by something ancient and hungry, and the alien civilizations had no idea what was happening to them. Commander Steve Palmer led a reconnaissance mission to the edge of what had once been Zentari space. His ship, the UES Shadow, was equipped with the latest stealth technology and quantum fold drives that allowed it to move undetected through alien territory. What he found at the border changed everything humanity thought they knew about the threat. "My God," Steve whispered as he stared at the main view screen. "They're not ships. They're alive." The massive objects that had been detected months earlier were revealed to be enormous biological entities, each one larger than Earth's moon. Their surfaces writhed with organic patterns that resembled both plant and animal characteristics. Smaller creatures, each the size of a city, emerged from the larger beings and descended toward inhabited worlds like cosmic locusts. The beings moved with purpose and intelligence, coordinating their attacks across multiple star systems simultaneously. They seemed to know exactly where to find the most advanced civilizations, ignoring primitive worlds that offered little technological harvest. Dr. Helen Rodriguez monitored communications from her research station above Mars, listening to the increasingly desperate transmissions from alien worlds under attack. The Krelian Empire had lost 6 colonies in 2 days. The Vorthan Confederation was evacuating their core systems. The Aquarian Federation had gone completely silent. "They're calling them the Voidborn," Helen reported to President Brooks during their daily briefing. "From what I can piece together from the alien chatter, these entities have been dormant in the space between galaxies for millions of years. Something woke them up." President Brooks studied the tactical displays that showed the Voidborn advance across alien space. "How much time do we have before they reach human territory?" "At their current rate of expansion, they'll consume the alien core worlds within 6 months," Helen replied. "If they continue toward Earth after that, we have maybe a year to prepare." The irony of the situation was not lost on anyone in the human government. The aliens had isolated humanity to protect themselves from human unpredictability, but that same isolation had prevented them from warning the galaxy about a threat that dwarfed any concern about human expansion. Admiral Susan Carter accelerated production of the new human fleet, pushing the orbital shipyards to their limits. The metamaterial hulls and quantum fold drives that had been developed during the isolation years were humanity's only advantages against an enemy that could apparently absorb traditional technology. "We need to understand how they work," Carter explained to her engineering teams. "Every report suggests that the Voidborn can adapt to and counter any technology they encounter. But they've never encountered anything like what we've developed." The breakthrough came from Dr. Benjamin Clark's medical research team. While studying Voidborn tissue samples recovered from dead worlds, they discovered that the entities operated on principles of technological absorption and adaptation. They could incorporate any static technology into their own biology, making them stronger with each civilization they consumed. The key is constant change, Clark explained during his presentation to the human military leadership. The Voidborn adapt to fixed patterns, but they can't absorb what's constantly evolving. Our metamaterial technology changes its properties in real time, which should confuse their absorption mechanisms. But the most crucial discovery came from Captain Jake Morrison, who had been monitoring alien military communications from his position near the galactic core. The aliens were preparing for a final stand at their most important worlds, but their strategies were based on outdated concepts of warfare. They're trying to build bigger guns and stronger shields, Jake reported to Earth Command. They don't understand that this enemy feeds on exactly that kind of thinking. Every weapon they deploy just makes the Voidborn stronger. The alien military commanders were following their traditional doctrines, creating massive defensive installations and deploying their most advanced battleships. They had no idea that each piece of technology they brought to bear against the Voidborn would ultimately be turned against them. Dr. Alan Pierce worked around the clock to find a way to contact the alien governments and warn them about the futility of their approach. But the communication blackout they had imposed on humanity remained in effect. Their own systems automatically rejected any messages from human sources, treating them as potential viruses or psychological warfare. We're watching an entire galactic civilization march toward extinction, Pierce told President Brooks during their emergency meeting, and they've made it impossible for us to help them. The situation grew more desperate by the day. Voidborn forces had consumed half of the alien Outer Rim territories, and their advance showed no signs of slowing. Entire species were disappearing from the galaxy, their worlds left as empty husks covered in the black organic substance that marked Voidborn feeding. Captain Lynn Fisher continued her reconnaissance missions, documenting the advance of the cosmic predators and searching for any weakness that might be exploited. Her crew worked in shifts, knowing that they were humanity's eyes and ears in a galaxy that was rapidly dying. The Voidborn don't just consume technology, Lynn reported during her latest transmission to Earth. They're learning from it. Each world they take makes them smarter, more efficient. If they reach the alien core worlds with their advanced technology, there may be no stopping them at all. The race was on. Humanity had perhaps 6 months to find a solution before the galaxy's most advanced civilizations fell to the Voidborn hunger. After that, Earth and its colonies would stand alone against an enemy that had grown fat on the technology of 47 different species. The aliens had wanted to isolate the unpredictable humans, but now that same unpredictability might be the galaxy's only hope for survival. The emergency broadcast from the Zentari homeworld lasted exactly 14 seconds before cutting to static. Admiral Susan Carter listened to the recording for the 5th time in her command center aboard the orbital defense platform above Earth. The alien voices carried pure terror as they described creatures that consumed entire cities in minutes. They're falling faster than we predicted, Carter told President Brooks during their secure communication link. The Voidborn have adapted to alien defensive systems completely. Every shield generator and weapons array they deploy just feeds the enemy. On the surface of Corellia, Ambassador Zextil stood in the emergency session of the Galactic Council, watching as representative after representative reported the loss of their colonies. The Plethary delegate had not spoken in 3 days because their entire species had gone silent. The crystalline Zentari representative flickered weakly, her light dimming as her people faced extinction. We must consider all options, Zextil announced to the remaining council members. The traditional methods of warfare have proven ineffective against this threat. Supreme Chancellor Vertex of the Aquarian Federation rose from his water-filled chamber, his tentacles writhing with agitation. There is one option we have not discussed. The humans developed new technologies during their isolation period. Perhaps they possess knowledge that could help us. The chamber fell silent. For 5 years, the mere mention of humanity had been forbidden in council sessions. Now their former enemies might be their only hope for survival. The communication blackout protocols are still in effect, reminded the Vorthan military commander, his insect-like mandibles clicking nervously. Our systems will automatically reject any human transmission as potentially hostile. Dr. Alan Pierce sat in his laboratory on Earth, surrounded by recording equipment that monitored every alien frequency he could access. The desperation in the alien communications had been growing for weeks, but he was powerless to respond. Every attempt to contact the galactic civilizations resulted in immediate rejection by their automated defense systems. "They're dying out there, and we can't even tell them we want to help," Pierce said to his assistant during their daily analysis session. "The irony is devastating. They isolated us to protect themselves, and now that isolation is going to kill them all." Captain Jake Morrison received new orders that made his stomach turn. His ship, the UES Liberty, was being equipped with a prototype communication array designed to punch through alien defensive frequencies. The mission was simple in concept, but potentially suicidal in execution. Break through the communication, black out and offer assistance to the species that had exiled humanity. "Sir, the alien defense systems will treat us as hostile the moment we enter their space," his communication officer Lissa Hayes warned during the mission briefing. "They've been programmed to destroy any human vessel on sight." Jake nodded grimly. "I know the risks, but we can't just sit here and watch the galaxy burn. If there's even a small chance we can help, we have to try." The UES Liberty launched from Earth orbit, carrying the hopes of all humanity. Its quantum fold drive allowed it to reach the edge of alien space in hours rather than weeks, but what Jake found there shocked him to his core. The beautiful blue-green world of Nexus Prime, once the jewel of the Zentari Collective, was now covered in the black organic substance that marked void-born feeding grounds. "Captain, I'm detecting massive alien fleet movements near the Galactic Core," reported Lieutenant Dan Murphy from the sensor station. "It looks like they're gathering everything they have for a final battle." Jake watched the tactical display as thousands of alien ships moved toward their most important worlds. The fleet was impressive by any standard, representing the combined military might of dozens of species. But Jake knew it would not be enough. The aliens were bringing exactly the kind of static technology that the Void-born fed upon. On Crelia, the final preparations for the Great Battle were underway. General Vexmore of the Crelian Defense Force coordinated with military commanders from across the galaxy, planning what they believed would be their salvation. Massive weapon platforms were being deployed. Shield generators the size of cities were brought online, and their most advanced warships took defensive positions around their core worlds. "We will make our stand here," General Vexmore announced to his staff. "Every piece of advanced technology in the galaxy will be focused on stopping these invaders." What the aliens did not understand was that they were preparing a feast for their enemies. Each weapon, each shield, each piece of advanced technology would be absorbed by the Voidborn and turned against its creators. The very thing they hoped would save them would ensure their DESTRUCTION. Dr. Maria Santos worked frantically in her research facility, analyzing the latest intelligence about Void-born behavior. Her computers ran simulation after simulation, trying to find any weakness in the cosmic predators. The results were always the same. Conventional technology made them stronger. "The only pattern I can find is chaos," Maria reported to the human military leadership. "Every time the aliens deploy organized, predictable defenses, the Void-born adapt and overcome them within hours. But when random factors are introduced, the adaptation process slows down significantly." President Brooks convened an emergency session of her cabinet to discuss humanity's response to the crisis. The debate was intense and painful. General Robert Kane argued that humanity owed the aliens nothing after 5 years of exile. They had made their choice when they cut off all communication. They treated us like a disease to be quarantined. Kane said firmly, now they're facing extinction, and suddenly they need our help. Where were they when we needed trading partners and allies? Admiral Carter disagreed strongly. If the galaxy falls to the Voidborn, Earth will be next. We can't survive alone against an enemy that's consumed 47 different civilizations. Our survival depends on helping them, whether they want our help or not. Dr. Benjamin Clark presented his analysis of the Voidborn threat to the assembled leaders. The entities are learning and growing stronger with each world they consume. If they absorb the technology of the alien core worlds, they'll become unstoppable. We have a narrow window of opportunity, but it's closing fast. The decision ultimately came down to President Brooks. She stood at the window of her office, looking out at the city that had rebuilt itself during the isolation years. Humanity had grown stronger in their exile, but they had also learned the value of cooperation and unity. We're going to help them, Brooks announced, not because they deserve it, but because it's the right thing to do. Captain Morrison's mission is approved. All available ships are to be prepared for immediate deployment. The U's Liberty approached the heavily defended Krelian system, its quantum fold drive allowing it to appear without warning near the alien defense perimeter. Immediately, automated systems locked onto the human ship and began charging weapons. A race. Jake had perhaps 30 seconds before the aliens opened fire. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Liberty. He broadcast on all frequencies, hoping his message would reach organic ears before the computers destroyed his vessel. We know about the Voidborn threat. We want to help. Please, respond. The alien weapon systems continued their target lock, but something unexpected happened. A communication channel opened, and a familiar voice came through the static. It was Ambassador Zexthil himself. Captain Morrison, you are in violation of the Galactic Exclusion Zone, Zexthil said, but his tone lacked the authority it once held. However, given our current circumstances, the Council is willing to hear what you have to say. Jake felt relief flood through him. Ambassador, your defensive strategy is playing right into the Voidborn's hands. They feed on organized technology. Every weapon platform you deploy makes them stronger. There was a long pause before Zexthil responded. What do you suggest we do instead? Let us show you, Jake replied. But first, you need to shut down your automated defense systems. My people are coming to help, but your own computers will destroy us before we can save you. The greatest irony in galactic history was about to unfold. The species that had been exiled for being too unpredictable were now the galaxy's only hope precisely because of that unpredictability. The Voidborn reached the galactic core on a day that would be remembered throughout the galaxy as the moment when everything changed. Admiral Susan Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching as the human fleet emerged from quantum, fold space directly into the heart of the alien defensive line. The sight that greeted them was both magnificent and terrifying. Thousands of alien ships floated in perfect formation around their most precious worlds, their weapons charged and shields at maximum power. But between them and their targets came the Voidborn, creatures of living darkness that moved through space like cosmic predators hunting their prey. The first wave of alien ships opened fire with everything they had, and Carter watched in horror, as their energy beams were simply absorbed by the organic hulls of their enemies. All ships implement Chaos Protocol, Carter ordered through the fleet communication system. Remember, predictability feeds them. Stay random, stay alive. Captain Jake Morrison piloted the UES Liberty through the battle zone, his ship dancing between alien vessels and Voidborn creatures with movements that defied tactical logic. The quantum fold drive allowed him to appear and disappear at will, striking at the cosmic predators from impossible angles before vanishing again. Jake, the Voidborn are trying to lock on to our movement patterns, called Lisa Hayes from her communication station. But our random jumps are confusing their adaptation systems. The human ships move like no fleet had ever moved before. Where? Alien vessels flew in organized formations, human craft scattered across the battlefield in apparent chaos. Where alien weapons fired in coordinated volleys, human guns shot in random bursts that followed no tactical manual. The Voidborn, creatures that had consumed the technology of 47 different species, found themselves facing something they had never encountered. Organized chaos. Dr. Rachel Stone watched the battle from her laboratory ship, monitoring how the Voidborn reacted to human technology. Her quantum fold drives were shifting their dimensional frequencies every few seconds, making it impossible for the cosmic predators to analyze and absorb them. The metamaterial hulls are working perfectly, she reported to Admiral Carter. Every time a Voidborn touches one of our ships, the hull changes its molecular structure. They can't adapt to something that's constantly evolving. On the surface of Corellia, Ambassador Zexthul coordinated the combined defense effort from the planet's military command center. For the first time in galactic history, human and alien forces were working together, but the integration was not smooth. Alien commanders struggled to understand human tactics that seemed to violate every principle of military strategy. Why are their ships attacking in random directions? Demanded General Vexmore, his forearms gesturing frantically at the tactical display. There is no coordination, no plan that I can identify. Dr. Alan Pierce, who had been brought to Corellia as humanity's liaison, smiled grimly. That's exactly the point, General. The Voidborn learn by analyzing patterns. Our ships don't follow patterns. Every human captain is making independent decisions based on immediate circumstances. The battle raged for hours, and slowly the tide began to turn. Voidborn creatures that had effortlessly destroyed alien fleets found themselves confused and damaged by human attacks that came from unexpected directions, with weapons that changed their properties mid-flight. The cosmic predators began to withdraw from some areas, regrouping to analyze this new threat. Captain Lynn Fisher commanded a squadron of human ships that had been equipped with Dr. Benjamin Clark's biological warfare systems. Instead of traditional weapons, they deployed modified Earth bacteria that could break down the organic compounds that formed Voidborn hulls. Target the largest creature, Lynn ordered her squadron. Deploy the biological packages on my mark. The modified bacteria spread across the Voidborn's surface like an infection, breaking down its organic armor and exposing the creature's vulnerable interior. Alien ships, following human tactical guidance, focused their fire on the weakened areas and watched in amazement as the massive entity began to collapse. Dr. Maria Santos coordinated the terraforming effort on worlds that had been partially consumed by the Voidborn. Her revolutionary techniques, developed during humanity's isolation, could restore life to planets that the aliens had considered permanently dead. The black organic substance is breaking down, she reported from the surface of a recovered Zentari colony. Our bacteria are converting it back into usable soil. This world will be habitable again within months. The turning point came when Commander Steve Palmer discovered the Voidborn's greatest weakness. The cosmic predators were linked through a biological network that allowed them to share information instantly. But this same network could be turned against them. If we can inject chaos into their communication system, we can disrupt their coordination. Across the entire galaxy, Palmer explained to the combined human-alien command staff, they share everything they learn, but they also share confusion and conflicting data. The plan was audacious and required perfect coordination between human and alien forces. While human ships continued their chaotic attacks, Alien vessels would deploy specially modified communication arrays that would flood the Voidborn network with contradictory information. President Catherine Brooks authorized the final phase of the operation from her command center on Earth. All human ships are to increase their randomization protocols to maximum levels. Make yourselves as unpredictable as possible. The effect was immediate and devastating to the Voidborn forces. As the cosmic predators tried to process the flood of contradictory tactical data coming through their biological network, their coordination began to break down. Creatures that had moved with perfect unity suddenly began attacking each other, confused by conflicting signals that told them their own allies were enemies. Dr. Helen Rodriguez monitored the Voidborn retreat from her research station, watching as the massive entities began to withdraw toward the galaxy's edge. "They're leaving," she reported with amazement. "The confusion in their network is causing a complete tactical collapse." The battle for the galactic core lasted 3 days and ended with humanity's greatest triumph. The Voidborn, faced with an enemy they could not understand or adapt to, retreated to the dark spaces between galaxies where they had slumbered for millions of years. In the aftermath, Ambassador Zexthul stood before the reformed Galactic Council in chambers that had been hastily rebuilt after the Voidborn attack. Representatives of the surviving species looked different now, humbled by their brush with extinction and grateful to the humans who had saved them. "The isolation decree is hereby permanently rescinded," Zexthul announced, his voice carrying none of its former arrogance. "Humanity is granted full membership in the Galactic Council with all rights and privileges. More importantly, they have earned something that cannot be legislated: our respect and gratitude." President Brooks accepted the Council's formal apology with grace, but her words carried a warning that would echo through galactic history. "We appreciate your apology, Ambassador, but let this be a lesson to all of us. Diversity is not a threat to be contained. Innovation is not chaos to be feared. The galaxy is stronger when we work together, not when we build walls between us." Captain Morrison returned to Earth as a hero, but he carried with him the knowledge that humanity's greatest victory had come not from superior weapons or technology, but from their willingness to think differently. The aliens had tried to contain human unpredictability, never realizing that this same quality would one day save them all. The quantum fold drives that had been developed in isolation became the foundation for a new era of galactic exploration. The terraforming techniques that Carl Jensen had perfected brought life back to hundreds of dead worlds. The medical advances that Dr. Clark had achieved extended the lives of every species in the galaxy. But perhaps most importantly, the galaxy had learned to value the very differences that had once seemed threatening. The Galactic Council established new protocols that encouraged innovation and protected minority viewpoints. Never again would a species be isolated simply for thinking differently. The silence had ended, but the lessons learned during those quiet years would resonate throughout the galaxy for generations to come. Humanity had proven that sometimes the best way to save civilization is to refuse to be civilized in the way that others expect. The galaxy was stronger now, united not by law or fear, but by the understanding that their greatest strength lay in their diversity.